It's not like there's a million people watching this.
Only 100.
They'll just be watching us forever, right?
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting. The Denali Borough Assembly. We're starting off with a work session to discuss ordinance 25-05, which is to establish a healthcare provider assistance program. And then we're planning probably about 6 o'clock or whenever the work session conversation's wrapping up. We'll start our regular meeting and go about some regular business. And this ordinance will come up during the regular meeting. Work sessions are a little different. We don't have any, we don't follow Robert's Rules of Orders. We don't entertain or kind of discuss any specific motions, but it is a chance for us just to hear from the public, hear from staff, just kind of talk openly and freely. But we want to make sure we avoid kind of making any decisions here. We can talk about proposed language or whatever we want to be included, but just don't want to be making any decisions in the work session. Save that for the regular meeting. So that sound right?
That sounds right.
Okay. Yeah, so we have members of the public joining us here tonight. A lot of times with our regular meetings, we do start off with public comment. We all looked at and discussed the healthcare provider assistance program ordinance at our meeting last week. Asked staff to think about it a little bit. And then we knew that we needed to chew on it and hear from members of the public a little bit more before we got too far down the road in making amendments and stuff like that. So I would like, if you guys are here, if you guys have read the ordinance, if you have anything you want to share, I'd like to hear that. And then staff presented us with a few questions, but if they just want to get us up to speed on conversations they've had in the office over the last month, and then we can kind of chew on that as an assembly. Does that sound like a good organization of our time?
I like it.
So,
Is everybody familiar with the proposed ordinance? Okay,
I might probably.
because
I mean, I would just say that I thought it was an excellent idea. And I've shared it because I've just finished practicing physical therapy here and we really want to attract another PT to the area. And I've shared the ordinance with Alec Kay. He's the president of the American Physical Therapy Association in Alaska. And he's also someone that is working with Todd and trying to get, and with me, trying to get a provider here in Healy to practice. And when I shared it with him, he said it's a game changer.
Really?
You know, that it's really helpful. And I think about 20 years ago when I started, you know, I could only work part-time here. Summers here, excuse me, and then winters in Antarctica. Had to go back and forth because I couldn't afford to just start a whole business like that. So it, you know, it grew organically here, but it could have happened a lot sooner. I could have stayed year round a lot sooner if something like this was available. So I think it's excellent. Chris had asked me just for some comments, and the only thing I thought of was it might be helpful to invest some money in advertising to attract the providers here, because I know you want medical providers as well as, you know, physical therapy.
I'm sorry, you want to go?
Just on the physical therapy side of things, so you've been doing it for decades. What's the market window that you see? Like, is this, like, if somebody brings a physical therapy practice in, I mean, obviously you made a living doing it. Like, is the opportunity good enough just on its own, the opportunity to get somebody to move here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there
Because
is enough
my
work.
experience is I constantly turn people away.
Okay.
And I had to take time off and always had a waiting list. And, you know, in the summer, I'd have to tell them I can't see any people that aren't community, you know, and then I started seeing only year-round people. Because I couldn't accommodate people.
That's actually really good to hear, because that's actually one of my reservations with the program is, you know, we get somebody here because we attract them with this program, and then there's not enough market for them to support themselves on their own? And then like, do we continue to subsidize them? Like, what do we do? So that's what we want to hear. Thank you.
Right, and we've discussed that, like Alec, you know, he contacted me, I've given him my numbers, we've discussed all that, because he wants to make sure it's viable. And even just the summertime could carry a provider through the winter, but
I'm good.
winters have been busy as well. A lot of people have their surgeries in winter because they want to be okay in the summer. So it's, right, because that's the time where everybody gets out and does everything, so.
And that's being, you know, not exactly in the center of the, you know, I'm sure a lot of people think that being down in the village, that it's
No,
far,
believe me, I knew when I
yeah.
opened a business, I thought Healy's a better place to
Right.
open the business,
Right.
but yeah. But land was hard to get, and Donna Gates offered to sell me an acre so that I would stay in the area.
Mhm.
And that's how it worked out.
So my question is, you know, the way, so what I had originally thought of when I was thinking about this whole thing was that, you know, that the borough is not in a position to like have a clinic or, you know, some boroughs, the Kenais, you know, they've got property tax and they've got hospitals. Right? We're not in that, but you know, a way to bring somebody that's, you know, like this single provider. And do you think that, I mean, the way that it's written now is that the loan is limited to $100,000. Do you think that that's enough? Do you think that that's a good number? Do you think that that's?
Definitely for physical therapy it is.
Mhm.
I can't really speak to the medical side because they have probably other equipment that's very, I mean, PT has expensive equipment, but their equipment's very expensive.
And if you, like, say, somebody was coming up here and was just opening up because you know about physical therapy, like a physical therapy practice, like what kind of, how much would the cost like to open it up? I have no idea.
Probably about, you know, when I priced my equipment to sell, you know, it's close to $100,000.
Okay,
You don't need all that equipment. Like I, every time somebody came in and needed a special thing, I went and bought it. But you can start with less than that.
Mhm.
So I think probably with even 30 to 50,000, someone could get started.
Okay. So you're thinking 100,000 is if somebody may not request the whole amount or
Yeah,
would be.
that's probably more than somebody would need.
Hmm.
For physical therapy, especially if it's a single provider.
Right,
Now, having said that, leasing a space, you have to do a build out. So that is, I don't know how much Todd and Mark are charging to do that.
yeah.
So that could add to that expense for sure.
I think it's encouraging to hear that. If we hear so much about medical care and physical therapy has been so successful. That's kind of relative, right? I mean, we know how busy the Canyon Clinic is. We know how busy this clinic used to be. So can only kind of imagine that a medical
possible.
provider could do even some physical therapy things or, you know, those aren't necessarily separate industries, though they do have separate lives.
So you're talking about like a shared facility.
Sure,
Yeah.
facility or some sort of a
We've
partnership.
talked about like a chiropractor company, you know, physical therapy, a few days chiropractor.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I know that everybody misses our chiropractor from downstairs too.
The sign is still up.
I know, so we want him to come back.
Anybody else from the public wanna chime in?
I can introduce myself. I'm Bonnie Westland. I'm with Holland America Princess, and we own the building for Canyon Clinic. And work with Horizon Medical Clinic to be the provider in that clinic, May through September. We heavily subsidize that clinic to have that service. Now, of course, it benefits our employees, our guests. We have a big footprint in Denali as a company between our employees and our guests, and we felt that investment was really important because healthcare is so important for the the experience, whether you live here or you're visiting.
Mhm.
And so, you know, a few years ago, that building, the original building was falling down the mountain, and we came to a crossroads of like, do we keep subsidizing this service? What do we do? And we decided it was so important to our operations. It was needed. A 2-hour drive to Fairbanks for somebody with a cough or, you know, a non-emergency. It costs a lot of labor. It's a vehicle. It's also a danger, you know, putting somebody on the road in a van to take somebody to a simple visit puts an employee in danger. So yes, we felt like it was very important to continue subsidizing this clinic, to have nearby and available to our employees and guests. And we're not the only ones that use it. I mean, you just mentioned, you know how busy the Canyon Clinic is, and it's busy. They do a lot of business there, and it's park service, it's everybody across the street. Folks from Healy come to that clinic, and it's a great service. So when we saw this ordinance being read, I think Ralph Samuels was here at the meeting last month, and he heard that. He's like, oh my gosh, we need to, you know, stay on, you know, be partners because we have this clinic. We're not medical people. We're in tourism. That's what our expertise is, right? So we got into this game because of necessity, and there's not been anybody else out there that has picked up the ball to provide this service in the Canyon. And it's been difficult to have a full-time clinic here in Healy to take on all these employees and all these tourists, right? So I guess I'm here to like say, hey, we need this service, we support it. Maybe there's a way that we can partner together with this building in the Canyon. I don't know, I don't have any answers or suggestions, but just wanted to say that we, as the owner of this building, and we've been invested heavily in this service, probably over $1 million to date.
Wow.
So just showing like we believe in having a clinic here. We, you know, like to just offer up, you know, be a voice at the table. Or
Do you feel like a clinic in Healy could cover the people in the
Yes.
Canyon? So
Yes.
if there was just one clinic in Healy,
yes,
you could get your
Yes.
guests to Healy.
and but because we haven't had that solid
No, you have,
service,
exactly, you
it's
have to,
it's
you have
had
to,
to be provided. Yeah, it doesn't need to be
Consistent.
something that our guests can walk to.
Right,
Or
okay.
yeah,
but you can, as long as you can get them there.
right.
Okay,
Healy's
that's
a
great.
lot closer than Fairbanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was my question.
for the record.
Or they're,
Not walking distance for both your clientele, but tough walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I wanted to hear from you and kind of hear about that relationship up there. I'm curious, you know, in the realm of doing something in Healy and to the level that you currently subsidize Horizon, do you see that the shell of this program is puts the bill to help subsidize that? Like, without getting into numbers and things like that,
Yeah,
I'm just
well, I mean, I
curious.
don't know if we want to continue, like, I think that's above my pay grade.
Yeah,
But I think, you know, we've been trying to find other people to help us with this clinic for years. We're the only ones that are paying for it, but yet it is a community service for other businesses, the local community, park service. We called it a Dial for Dollars campaign a couple years ago. We started it before the pandemic, trying to get like other businesses to come and help us pay for this. We went to Aramark, Doyon, we went to Old Harbor, who owned the Grandin Bluffs at the time. And we kind of just like hit the pavement asking if anybody else would, hey, what if you guys all pitched in and we all subsidize this clinic together as a service for all of us. And nobody returned phone calls or emails. So, you know, and then we talked to Mayor Clay Walker when he was in office, and we've met with Mayor Chris Knoll too. And so just keeping that conversation open, like, hey, you know, we don't have to be the sole,
So does it have to be subsidized? You can't,
well,
It's
so
not
from what
profitable?
so I don't want to speak out of,
Yeah.
because I don't know all the details, but I do know like they do take some insurance, and so that does help with recovering of costs, but
Yeah.
I know a far majority of it, we just cut them a check to be open and be there to offer the service. They also offer some fits because we do subsidize the clinic to our employees, so like we have a little copay that our employees can go in, so, but only our employees because we're the ones, so. And so we've done a dial for dollars like to Aramark or the other players in the canyon, like, hey, like, maybe if we partner on this together, this could be a service to your employees
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You know, they've got a cough and they want to be seen by a PA, you know,
But
but yeah,
it does cover the cost of your employees to get
yes,
there.
yeah,
I see.
yeah,
But without a subsidy, they wouldn't be able to operate.
right,
Yeah.
100% true.
Hmm.
Yeah. But then I also didn't know if like Horizon was somebody that you guys have communicated or reached out to see if they were interested in doing. Or probably no reach out has happened yet, you gotta have the fun first,
Yeah,
so.
well, and also, you know, I mean, that's. Because, you know, then it's sort of a bigger thing, you know, we're taking on a lot more. You know, that would be, I feel like a bigger program than this, right? Or a
Well-
different program or something different.
There's a challenge there, I think, just, we have Interior Health across the hall here. We've got Horizon that operates seasonally in the canyon. But it seems what the community needs year round isn't either of those things. But then, do we have 3 clinics in the area? So that is, when we get to like that level, so there is a different conversation for me. A PT, a dentist, a chiropractor, you know, separate from kind of those traditional clinic services that I think when the community thinks about it, when I hear people talk about it, is we want the old Healy Clinic back that did all the things that you want a clinic to do locally. But that's
I don't understand why that can't be profitable for somebody to operate that type of clinic.
I think a
In
big part of
Healy.
it's insurance.
Pardon me?
Insurance is a huge part of it, but I don't understand why we can't get them on the preferred providers list.
Well,
for,
that's what
you
I
know,
say. I've been a preferred provider for all these
Because
insurances
they-
that are here.
I don't, I haven't talked enough with Interior Health, so I might just be blowing wind here, but I just feel like they haven't put much time into it here. Like they just are not very proactive. They just kind of take what they can get from us and good enough, you know, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the.
and they're a
insurance-
community health center
Yeah.
focused
that's
on
why.
primary care and has I think a more limited mission
Yes,
Right. Not
than
an
the
emergency.
community here
service.
desires of a clinic
yes.
that is gonna provide maybe some like some of the urgent care stuff that you do get.
Yeah.
It's like the Horizon Clinic provides more of what a lot of people feel like they need a local clinic to do.
Yes.
Whereas, for some of the primary care stuff, if you're gonna see a specialist, it's gonna be a trip to Fairbanks anyway. That's kind of what I've heard in terms of like,
Yes. And there's,
trying to
I
find
mean,
that right balance.
the base here for insurance coverage is amazing compared to other places. I was talking to Alec about it and I was explaining how my Medicare has gone from, I had one person on Medicare 20 years ago that I treated and I became a Medicare provider. And now it's up to like 17%. He said nationally it's 40%. So they're actually the lowest payer. If you had all Medicare, you'd probably be in trouble, but so this region is actually prime for an individual, like a doctor to do okay here, I think.
Do you know, Bonnie, if any of the support that HAP offers the clinic is in the form of housing?
They have one sourdough cabin. Are you guys familiar with the sourdough cabins at the bottom of the chalet cabin? They just have a bathroom. There's no kitchen. And so we do provide one cabin with the clinic. I think historically, some of them have had their own RVs as well. So they live in their RV for the summer. And that sourdough cabin is only summer housing.
Yeah.
That's only urban use.
So Bonnie, just to make sure I heard things correctly. So right now, the Canyon Clinic is only serving Princess employees or HAP employees because of your financial arrangement?
No, anyone is
Okay.
welcome to go to the clinic,
Okay,
all,
okay.
all community and tourists.
Yeah. Yeah, and how long has it been the case you've been subsidizing the clinic?
Well, I've been here since 2010 and it was going on then.
Mhm,
So,
Right,
yeah, so in that old building, so maybe the early aughts, mid aughts.
Okay, okay, yeah, just trying to get a frame of
Yeah.
reference. I know Kim White was heavily invested and involved with getting that whole clinic going because of the IHC issues. So I'm just trying to bridge my understanding to the present. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Absolutely.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but
Yeah.
just to,
This is a work session. We're on-
Yes, big attorneys, it is your turn.
and I'm not trying to counter what you said, Jared, but you made a comment about, do we need 3 clinics, in Ely or in our area? And I don't see it as 3 clinics because the Canyon one is only open, May to September. We all know what this one's providing. So I don't feel like it would be 3 at that point. And we've got half,
2.5, yeah.
right? So, and the whole year round thing is a huge puzzle piece to this as well,
Yeah.
right? Maybe we can get into like longer hours or semi-urgent care. I know those are the needs of the community as well, but I really feel there is a need for that clinic, that type of clinic.
Yeah, and my thought was a little bit more like, if there is a clinic located in the canyon,
Right.
easy access to kind of that tourist market.
Yeah,
And then there was only one, like here in Healy, that if we all want the tourist market to subsidize our nice clinic to be open year round for the rest of us. Like
Right.
that's what we do with our vet taxes, that's what we do with everything. It's like, all right, well, come and join us and then we'll enjoy the fruits of that
right.
all year. So it's how much, like if there's, if that's the highest, the most profitable, time of year in market, like if that's, gonna be, if it's not gonna be available to subsidize,
I also don't want to speak for Horizon, but I do, just from a little bit that I do know, just being a community member and, talking to certain members of Horizon and whatnot, and even being at that meeting, at the ICHC meeting last month. There was some of their employees, some of their PAs that work with Horizon. So they're well aware, and I think they are waiting potentially for the fundage and then the invitation and then maybe the bringing together. So I think there is definitely opportunity. We can make it happen and make it happen.
Care.
Yeah.
If I can pause real quick, is everyone familiar with Trina? Trina Howden, our new, she's our new
Trina Howden.
planner.
Maybe
Everyone's not
never-
familiar
Not my first.
With Trina, she used to be here, she left for a few years and now she's back, so that's a new face too, that's,
Yeah.
you're gonna see her more.
And I'm kind of passionate about, was everyone that was at the meeting, I did stand up and speak very, very bluntly and loudly about not
need to
our
break up.
dissatisfaction with ICHC. So I feel passionate about it only because of my frustration of, I've been here 17 years this year, the year I moved here, got pregnant, and I know the fears, I know the adversities of having to go 2 hours, and we were a lucky family that we didn't have to. My son was extremely healthy, so we didn't have a lot of that, but I see other families and I see other families moving away because they don't have that care, and I feel like it's a huge hole in our community. And our population, triples in the summer, so we really need to capture our entire true population, not just in the off season, but year round. No.
It surprises me that the summer canning clinic can't keep, can't like turn, we can keep going without the subsidies. I mean, I'm not, it just is,
But
I
we're
wouldn't
saying that you paid for your people though. They're employees.
right,
Well,
but,
yeah,
I mean, for instance,
but we made a deal because we were subsidizing so
Exactly.
much, we wanted
Yeah.
to get something, right?
Which makes perfect sense.
Right, yes, they'd be able to have
That's a perk.
a perk.
Yeah.
I mean, because does the Park Service give you pay for some portion? Because I used to drop people off there with ambulance all the time.
So they definitely take payment on their own, and I
Right.
think they do some insurance, not all insurance.
Yeah, that's one of the things I heard about the clinic was that they don't necessarily take all the insurance that people have.
But they'll give you the paperwork to file a claim.
So I kind of see, there's a little bit always with this, there's a little two things going on. I think we have a little bit more an ordinance with the site, yeah, the site's set a little bit lower.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of community energy around the clinic we all want, which is maybe one of the things we need to talk about at our work session here is, are these two separate things? Do we want to keep this ordinance specific to more like a dentist and a physical therapist or something in that $100,000 range? Or do we want to expand the whole thing and involve ourselves as a borough in, you know, bringing a clinic to Healy? And is that the same thing, or are those two separate things? And like, what do we want to do with the ordinance that we introduced last week? or last month?
I appreciate your comment. I guess in my mind, the ordinance is like what we use to attract those people, because we don't want to stand up a full clinic and then have nobody sit in it and operate, right? But if we can get a dentist or a practitioner or a chiropractor kind of in the door so that they can kind of small scale it. And then maybe as a borough, we coordinate, hey, you guys are all here now. How do you feel about partnering with us to do this? And kind of build to it rather than just gamble, I guess is the word I will use. But I kind of like the ordinance at the small scale level that we're talking about tonight. But I do hope and see the future where the dentist is here, successful, ready to go into a bigger partnership. And we do kind of create that community clinic with the providers that have come and proven and stayed and have grown to call this place their home. I think that would be a more feasible approach. I do understand the clinic and wanting an x-ray machine here and somebody who can pull out my stitches or give me stitches here. Because the 2-hour trip while you're bleeding all over your car is not fun. Or going into Fairbanks for a 15-minute x-ray of my broken leg. So I definitely agree with what you're saying, where there's like two topics here. But I would hate to not push this ordinance and get nothing while we decide what that bigger picture looks like.
And then that's kind of where my sense is, like, I think we have at least one provider who like sees this as an opportunity. Is like this, like what we have on the table now is making business opportunities realistic. There was a dentist that was applying for a nonprofit grant last year that was interested through, in providing dental service here in the community. Financial hurdles got in the way. It seemed like the nonprofit grant avenue wasn't a good, it didn't quite all come together to make it happen, but feels a little bit like a missed opportunity because we want a dentist to be here in the community. So again, I kind of see this as being targeted for those kind of individual entrepreneurs to make it realistic to get started. So I like the idea of focusing in on that, knowing that there is that bigger picture conversation, but
Right,
I think that would be, it's gonna be a whole different.
yeah. I mean,
And
this is
the role of the
something,
borough in that is gonna be a
Right.
whole different thing, so.
this is something that we could do right now, that we could just do. Right, again, actually, have the program and get it going and, kind of see how it goes.
I'd be curious to hear, the perspective. It seems like, whatever provider is looking to come in is sort of gonna get funneled over to that new facility behind the bank with Darlin Enterprises has built. I'd be interested, to kind of get that perspective from those guys. Cause that place has been there for several years now.
Yeah,
Granted, I haven't seen any advertising or things like that to like try and attract anything, but I'm just curious if the barrier to entry is capital. I wonder, I don't know, like this is a good avenue to try and provide that. But I just wonder if that is what it needs. I don't know.
Well, and to be fair to the Darlin building, they finished that ready for lease the year that COVID took over. Which has then had the economic implications, so it's kind of like in the lull
And,
afterward.
and they're idealistic. They want healthcare. So they've
Yeah, it
got,
seems like it, right?
they've got
That's
offers,
what it's
people
there for.
wanting to open restaurants. And people wanting to have gift shops just in the summer where they could make money on it, but they're kind of holding out. They
I
really
just,
wanna.
I wonder if they've had interest from healthcare providers.
Well, yeah,
and-
the one that I've been working with too, from United Physical Therapy in Anchorage. He came up last Sunday with his wife
Okay,
and they stopped at my place first and then went and met with Todd and Mark. And also met with Cora, who's been working at Clear. And yeah, he's trying hard.
startup capital seems to be the barrier to entry.
No, Chris asked me to ask him about that also, and he looked at the ordinance and thought it was great. And that would help a lot. And he's just trying to find staff. That's what he's doing. And he told me he was going to advertise nationally next. That he had somebody that worked for him years ago in Maine and whose wife is a RN. So looking for opportunities for her as well, so they could come as a team, which would be great for the community.
Yeah,
But I'm on the same page as where you're going with this. The whole idea is to entice folks to get here. Because I know how hard you are to get into. It doesn't matter what type of insurance you have. There's one of you. So, and there's also Cara over at the Sedell Clinic also. Very extremely hard to get into, and especially with the needs of this community. Let's say your field physical therapy, if you have to drive to Fairbanks because they want you to go 3 days a week. A couple hours there, you spend an hour there, a couple hours, that's 5 hours out of that day, times 3 times a week, that's 15 hours out of your week.
Can't do it.
We need more folks like you that will start up, that'll come here and they'll realize there actually is a huge need. There's a huge demand and I think it would be very profitable for those persons to come here and start it up. I think that there's enough and insurance and everything else to cover that stuff. So that's why I was really supportive of this here because it's getting somebody in, it's getting them a foothold to go, hey, I'm here, let's get it started, and I can make it, and we can hopefully entice some other folks like the hygienist, the dental hygienist. I really wanted her to come last year, and I was really pushing for that one, just like everybody else. I thought that would have been so great. Maybe this will start making the difference. I mean, that's why I want to support this. I do also support like some of the other clinics or medical professionals, maybe with a satellite where they come down here. They got practice, let's say in Fairbanks or wherever, they go back a day a week, a day a month, maybe 2 days a month, whatever it is, just to get them established. Once you get folks in here, it's like, hey, there is a demand. So that's where I believe this is going. The clinic, I think that's a bigger picture. Once you get the people, well, now they have a place to go, but we got to get those people first.
Yeah, I like some of these questions on here. I wanted to talk through some of them. The satellite, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I think one of the good questions here is, how do you tie this funding into an operation that uses this as a satellite? i.e., do we need to look at this funding to be dedicated to here versus being used in a larger operation? I feel like that's
Which like the IPHC problem is,
Yeah,
right?
we have the
So,
hygienist. I think that was part of that one, as I remember, is she was in Fairbanks and she wanted to come down here and spend a few days here, not full time, but as a satellite. I think that was her intent, which was great. Get down here, become a satellite, and then maybe bring in some other folks that are interested in the same thing, maybe share a facility. So
But I think that
do you have thoughts on that?
yeah, I would think that the intention would be, and this would be because, you know, the way it would work, right? They fill out an application, which, you know, is one of the things we have to talk about. And then it would be up to the borough, you know, the assembly to decide whether or not to grant the funds. But I would think that, you know, like one of the questions on the application is, well, in a business plan, obviously, you know, what their tie is to the borough but the other expectation was that the money is gonna be spent within the borough.
capital improvements,
Is that,
salary
Improvement
paid.
salaries or something, but all
Services
within
and
the
I
borough.
don't have a copy of the ordinance, I mean, we have intention, right? But is there a way for us to write teeth into the ordinance?
Well, I mean, part of it is that, I mean, we left it kind of a little bit vague. I have a couple copies here. But, a lot of it is
I
up
just-
to,
Just curious, cause I understand the concern, right? We don't wanna subsidize another interior house.
Yeah,
situation,
exactly.
right?
but
But
you know, I
if we
mean,
could write it into the ordinance, it is the expectation that these funds will be used to service the citizens of the Denali Borough,
I think that that's a
yada,
good
yada,
thing to
yada,
add.
yada. I was looking for a copy of it so I could see where.
Yeah, I
it is.
can.
Could that be addressed, could that be addressed in the application? Where
that's
in
what I
order
was
to qualify, you've got to make a 5-year or some level of commitment to the borough community in order to receive the funds, in order to stay in good standing with the loan. So at least, you know, there's a commitment to set up shop and stick with that for a 5-year period, 10-year period, whatever would be or might be appropriate, tied to the repayment of said loan, right? So,
Dedicated business to the area.
Like a
i.e.,
new business entity. Or.
mean, as
even if
opposed
it's a satellite, as long as that satellite's gonna stay put for a minimum of, say, 5 years, you know, then at least it provides a level of certainty for the community. As opposed to somebody saying, it ain't working out, I'm picking up shop. But at least this could be an incentive to stay within the community for some level of loan forgiveness.
Yeah, I think that the loan forgiveness aspect of it, I think is where the teeth kind of come in. It's like if you meet.
Yeah.
If you meet the terms of that, if you meet the terms of the loan and you follow through on all the things you said you're gonna do in the application, we've got our money's worth, we will forgive. And then a part of that turns into like a grant program that you're still here after 5 years. You're doing what you said you're gonna do. Keep your money,
Right.
thank you,
Right.
reinvest in your business or whatever it is, but
Was that in the ordinance?
Yeah, so it's what it is after 5 years, the, person that got the loan entity can come to the borough and request forbearance on half of the remaining amount.
Thank you, Amber.
So that would be like
25%.
25 grand, you know, like,
5% of the
yeah,
total.
because it would be after half the loan is paid off.
Wonderful.
And, you know, as incentive for, you know, maybe staying or just like you said, you know, and also for, I mean, because we do give out grants, so it's a little bit akin to that, but.
I'm just wondering. Along the line of, you know, assurance. X hours a month, I mean,
I think that if you can't, it's hard to be like
Is it-
really specific. I mean, we have like under the purpose, it says. Implement a program under which the borough may support and encourage healthcare providers to offer healthcare services in the Denali Borough. So I mean, it's clear that that's what's meant to be. If somebody, I mean, granted, we're giving them a loan, if something were to happen, say, after 4 years and they. Move it to Nenana, say. Well, we don't have to forgive the other things and they still have to just pay off the loan. Right, so we're not out, you know, I mean, we're not giving anything away unless we're, you know, that forbearance thing, unless we're actually.
well, unless there's a default.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's, you know, I mean, that's the risk we're taking, right, is that they'll default on their loan. But I mean, that's the same as. You know, that's just the way it is.
I mean, one aspect of it is this available to, you know, seasonal, or are we only targeting year-round providers?
I say if they can handle the seasonal load, you let them, I mean, they gotta make their profit somehow, right? They, just like the, Horizon Clinic. It's for the people that are here visiting, but I know numbers of people that go down there. So, yeah, it's like a preferred demographic, right? We want them to treat our year-round residents, but if they have the staffing or they can hire a second assistant and pump through those numbers, like we don't wanna forbid.
But what about
But
if it's
if they were,
something
if they're only here for 3 months a year, providing the services.
Right.
like in their
Do they qualify
application?
for the program?
Yeah, I
Oh, okay.
I agree
Yeah.
with her.
That was my
I think
question.
we're trying to track somebody year round to serve the borough residents.
I mean,
For me, that's what I.
If you want your, if you want your 25, if you want your, if you want your loan forgiveness at the end of 5 years, it's because you've been
Year round.
operating year round.
Yes.
Like that would be one
Yeah, I
of the
think-
teeth
I think
that we
that
wanna
should
put
be
into it,
put
and I
in
don't know if
there
that,
for
That makes sense to me and like,
okay.
you know,
right, so I guess like that's what my point of this conversational squirrel that I took us on is. I would like us to see that clearly stated.
Yeah.
In the ordinance, so that borough 10 years from now, when somebody actually comes and applies for this, cause they finally found out about it, cause that's how things kind of work. We're not banking on the intent of the future assembly members, right? It's written, this is how it is, year-round practice. X% expectation.
Yeah, this is an opportunity to kind of craft the program to help meet the needs that we have identified, the way I kind of look at it, so you could build on that, you know, to I guess whatever parameters you see fit, but I feel like that's the opportunities is there in the application process as we decide who you're gonna give the money to, like, here's the requirements, here's the hours of operation that we need, here's whatever, just saying.
I think that, you know, as far as putting it in, certain things would be good to actually put in. You know, like the purpose of this and having it be a year-round business, that makes a lot of sense to me and making it clear that, yeah, we're intending the money to be spent within the borough. Boundaries.
For year-round service.
Yeah, like those are two good things to add in there.
what if it's an individual provider and they can't find coverage and they really do need to have some time off?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's gotta be 20, it's gotta be 52 weeks a year,
Okay, good.
but it's just not, the idea is that it's not
The
gonna be
idea.
seasonal.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other question I think I have for everybody is, I just chose the $200,000 because, you know, in the budget, that's what was like little left over. And so it seems good a number as any. But maybe Allison could speak to, you know, what the limits of our program could be, or, you know, the financial aspects of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the ordinance does propose creating a fund for this program. So similar to how we do interfund transfers to like our major school maintenance or our capital, that would be how the fund account is, you know, funded, and that would determine. So I don't want to say that there's no limit because
Yeah. Right. But there is, I mean, there is funding there, you know, looking at the budget beyond the $200,000, which would just kind of like. But I don't know what's
Competing
everybody,
priority.
yeah, I don't know what everybody's thinking is on that number.
I feel
I
like
just
it's a good
chose-
place to start.
Yeah.
I mean,
And hopefully we hear from, hopefully there's interest in the
Right.
program,
like, did we?
if
ever
it's successful or if it's not.
reach
Or
back out
if people
to
are
that?
interested to say like this, this isn't enough for what we wanna do. If it's a higher
Yeah.
investment business,
Yeah, I mean, if we get actually a whole bunch of people applying, then it'd be like, well, good.
big problem they have.
What is, this might be your question, Allison, but what is the need to create a separate fund and codify the program? Like, is that just the
So-
idea to make it, or?
Bookkeeping.
I think it was modeled after our emergency service apparatus fund, which is a grant program that is limited to the balance in the fund or capped at 200,000. So I think this the intention of the ordinance was to model it after a similar program that we already have in place. By having it in its own dedicated fund, we are committing those funds to that purpose. That doesn't mean that, you know, you can't take the funds back out. would authorize that through an allocation ordinance, to take the funds back out for a different purpose, but you are committing those funds to that particular purpose when you're putting it in.
And if somebody makes payments, they take out the loan we offer, they make payments, it goes back into that fund and those would then become available. So it would replenish itself over a certain time frame.
Yeah, but that's like the preferred way to do that, to handle that.
If it's not set up in its own fund, then likely it would go through the general fund and there's different limitations on that, you know, does it have budgetary implications on our annual budget? You know, it would affect our general fund, restricted and unrestricted balance, which does inform our forward funding limit for our budgeting. So there are different ways of.
If and when money gets loaned,
Yeah, I
but
would
not
say the
until
most
then.
transparent would likely be having an own dedicated fund.
I guess I did wanna provide opportunity for staff time, and I will say, we're finishing up a work session on a specific health coordinates. And then in a few minutes, we'll close the session and we'll open up a regular meeting, and there'll be opportunity for public comment and anyway, we're gonna shift gears in a minute here, but we're in our work session right now. So I guess you provided a good list of questions. Some of them, I think we've been kind of talking around a little bit, but
And I'll just share for Dominic's sake, we, because Mayor Knoll wasn't able to be here at the last minute tonight, Allison, and I just kind of threw something together really quick, and so everyone here has a paper copy, I will email that, what they're referencing.
Okay.
So that's why we're talking, and you don't know what we're talking about, it's
Yeah,
it's a
okay,
list
yep.
information that, just some talking points that Chris was gonna review tonight, and then he wasn't able to be here, so.
Okay.
I will read through these just as a
For the record.
as a kind of a for the record, and then if people want to respond to any of these individually, let's do that. But in terms of purpose and intention of the program, is this aimed at a one-time use or limited use program, or is it intended to be indefinite? If a limited use program, could the program be developed under administration and funded through the budget process, similar to the economic development agreement? What is the need to create a separate fund and codify the program? Is the program intended to be the first option for funding, or will it be the last option of funding, or a loan gap funding? Should the applicant show skin in the game through other secured funding or personal capital? Should applicants show that all other funding sources have been exhausted, inappropriate, unaffordable, or unobtainable before becoming eligible for this program? Is this program intended to be a last option or loan gap funding for a new business? And then we want to define what services are considered healthcare and kind of have like a defined list of occupations. Will proof of professional licensing and or legal ability to provide medical service be required? And then kind of that question about what does it mean to be in the borough? Are these providers required to have their main operations in the Denali borough, or are satellite operations acceptable? What is the mechanism to ensure funding is used for Denali borough operations if it is a satellite operation?
I mean, I think that these are all some good things to think about. I feel like the idea that this would be, I mean, because the terms of this loan are so attractive, I would think this would be everybody's first like choice, as far as, I mean, they're getting a much, a half of the prime rate it's a much better thing than they're gonna get at bank. And the possibility that after 5 years, a portion of it would get forgiven also makes it super attractive. So I can't imagine anybody would go have this be like the second one, you know what I mean? Like to me, this is meant to be, or it's just, it wouldn't make sense for anybody not to try and do this as a first thing. So I think with those questions, like we have to assume that this is gonna be the first choice.
What do you think about those questions up there?
The eligible activities. I almost think that it doesn't, that, it's a loan. it's meant to support their business. And whatever way they see fit is the way they could spend it, as long as it's within the borough and it's intended to, and that is helping us meet some sort of healthcare need. I don't think that we really have we need to have a say or really have a right to tell them how to have a say in it.
Yeah, I would agree. I did a little digging around on small business administration loan programs. And, I haven't gotten into a lot of the details. But when you look through the application, basically, like David's saying, they lead it to the applicant to call out how they intend to use the money. And then it would be up to the lender to determine if, okay, we're okay with it going towards purchasing land or for hiring staff, any of these bullet points that are before us. And then whoever's making the decision to approve the application would make that call. I think it can be left fairly open, so we don't have to dictate every little detail that would need to be met in order to submit an application. I think if we micromanage it too far in that direction, we may not get the response we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the attractiveness of the loan is that it will have a lower barrier to entry than a traditional lender would be, both with reduced interest rate, possibility of forgiveness, and, we would be a little less.
Overbearing.
Different underwriting guidelines.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because we're gonna be a little easier on them because, we're really trying to encourage somebody to come and trying to make it easy for them to get over that hurdle to come into the borough. And so, yeah, I would think that it would have to be pretty easy.
Yeah, easy, but there are certain minimum requirements. I think there
Yeah.
should be, a given that you have to be a licensed professional within that area of healthcare to be considered.
Yes,
Right?
and have a
So-
business plan. And,
Yes.
I would think that the application would say like, all right, what's your business plan? What's your qualifications? What are your ties to the borough? And
Who's the ownership group too? We want to know who the ownership group is, what their relative stakes are in that company, if it's private, or otherwise. What's their operating plan, intended operational plan? If they've been in business, we want to know, can you give us 5 years of financials?
Right.
Balance sheets, P&L statements, just so we can see what is there financial credibility behind this organization that's applying for the funds. So I think that can be addressed by requiring through the application process certain documents that speak to that organization's history, background, experience, financial health, et cetera.
yes,
And there might be, as we get into the details of the ordinance, just in terms of whatever. Asking a private business to provide their financials, like that kind of puts us in that role, like as a financial institution or as a lender, but we would need to go through our legal counsel in terms of how that information is handled,
but also with the understanding that if it's somebody new or young or something that, they're not gonna have a lot of things. And that, we might have to decide. I mean, we were gonna give the dental hygienist $25,000 based on that little application and her speech to us. So, you know what I'm saying?
I consider somebody with a license, like they've been through school, they've done the things, like that's their skin in the game.
Yeah.
Like they have invested enough of their person in getting qualified to this point that this is just a financial thing.
Right.
I think their commitment to practice should be there.
And
Not getting that far.
that's something that we can do. I don't think we have to put that in the application, just like, but we're the ones approving the loan.
Right.
Let's do some due diligence and look at reviews and, you know, of whatever practice they've been a part of, you know, see if they're, you know, existing customers or past customers are happy with the care they received.
Yeah.
And if everybody says we ran them out of town on a rail because they were horrible, well, then we can say no loan for you.
Right.
It's totally up to us.
Part of vetting the
Yeah,
application
but
side,
it's,
we did that.
you know,
with
if,
the-
yeah,
digest.
go ahead, go ahead. Well, just with every loan I've ever applied for, regardless of type, the lender wants to know what your financial health is. And if you're a newbie, you just got your license and you have an idea and you have a business plan to support how you're going to develop idea, and you don't have the 5-year history or 1-year history, whatever it is, that wouldn't eliminate them from consideration. All I'm saying is if you have been in the business and you have financial records, I don't know how we get around not including or reviewing an organization's financial health, you know, in that process. You know, the SBA, that you have to go through lenders that are aligned with the SBA program. So you're dealing with a bank no matter how you do it. So I guess back to, you know, David, when you met with the folks in Juneau at AML, what do they do as far as any kind of financial background? You know, I understand the legalities and the risk in
Right.
making those determinations and who gets to see that, how that information is treated, but they must have some mechanism to address it, I would think.
Yeah, but I mean, they were, you know, they were talking about, they're lending like $5 million at a time. And so they did a lot of, you know, they did a lot of background checks. And there was a lot that they were, you know, looking into. And most of it, you know, I mean, the lawyers were involved and, you know, it was because there were such chunks, each individual case was looked at sort of separately. But yeah, they had a lot, because they were putting a lot of money on the line. You know, we're talking about much smaller amounts.
Yeah, but in a relative
But, I
sense,
mean, I agree. I mean, that we would have to do our due diligence, and all these things would be factors that I think would be addressed in the application process.
right. That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel not qualified to be assessing someone's financial health or whatever that is. I don't know, is that service? Something like typically a bank does that because they are lending, like they're in that business all the time. Is that type of financial risk assessment something that you could be, you know, if we wanted to, we could outsource that, contract somebody to do that assessment for us and I guess cover our butts? Like, is that a way to do due diligence? And is that something we'd want to do to not take on that burden and
Right.
and learn a whole new skill set?
Well, I know that last time we talked about, you know, maybe partnering with First Alaska to have them manage the actual loan repayment and all that stuff, but maybe this would be a part of the, because they obviously do this, right?
Again, something we want our staff to consider. Well, how do we make this easy? And how do we do the best job? How do we make it easy on ourselves? And
Well, we protect our public money too. I think that's the other side of this
Yeah.
coin that we have to be sensitive to.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
it's only $200,000, it's not 5 million, but to the borough, 200,000 is a lot of money. That's a lot of
Yeah, I
money.
know, good amount of money.
and whether that's just how the administration wants to do it, or if that's something that needs to be written in the ordinance,
Right.
let us know how much guidance we need to
Right.
put in there. So I feel like I have a list of a half dozen or so items that maybe would be considered kind of the teeth or specific things that we want to go in there. A license,
do
a business
you wanna-
plan, information about the ownership of the business, operation plan, how do you express a commitment to borough providing service to the borough. And then kind of like that financial health, like the financial due diligence side of it. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking is, so, I mean, the ordinance is gonna be up for consideration again tonight.
Mhm.
Should we postpone it? And then the following month, like everybody has the things that like, let's change this, this and this. Does that make sense?
We need a timeline here?
Well, this person's trying to come in pretty quickly,
Yeah.
really. Anyway, that's just my.
I mean, I agree. I mean, sooner obviously is better, but I don't know, are we in a? Do you think
Yeah, I
that
feel
we-
like what you're talking about is something we should do during the meeting.
Okay,
rather
Yeah, I
than-
guess if we wanna make specific amendments, we could also have, one of us take the ideas that we've had from this work session, work with staff,
right.
and then come
change-
back with us with a version B
Right,
that implements a lot of the things that we've talked about.
which I'd
And
be
come
willing to
back,
do
come back with a version B
Right.
next month.
if we want to do that. I guess we'll
It is gonna
decide that
be-
during the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Those are the two options. We can amend it as much as we want tonight, for sure. But
Yeah, we could
whatever
amend
we
it
think the
and
most
then-
effective way to get those amendments implemented,
Okay,
get it over the finish line,
yeah.
before I get hurt.
Sit down.
Yeah. Hey, thanks everybody for a great work session. Thanks for being here, public. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for your guys'.
Thank you.
Great, thank you guys for doing this. It's amazing. It's a really great idea.
Yeah, hopefully. I blame David.
I
Yeah,
do-
blame me.
Pass that back to him.
Right, like this might have. your-
Mark.
Oh, is that mine? Oh, sorry.
Okay, we've got dinner, salad, pizza, snacks for everybody. Yay, for our last meeting, which put us 15 minutes over, so we're right on
track.
right on track. Good job, guys. All right. So. Yes, that'll move us into public hearing. We have 6 ordinances that are gonna be up for consideration tonight. After the public hearing, we'll go into a regular meeting where we'll have time for public comments. But the ordinances up for consideration tonight are our fiscal year 2026 budget, our fiscal year 2026 capital improvement program, establishing a healthcare provider assistance program, ordinance to establish the Community and Outdoor Recreation Committee, an ordinance to allocate from the capital improvement fund money for the Clear Fire Road Repair Project, and an allocation from the capital improvement fund for improvements at the Cantwell Transfer Station. So lots of things going on. If anybody would like to testify to any of those ordinances, please stand up, state your name, and limit your testimony to about 3 minutes. And I don't see anybody online. If you wanna testify or provide comment to tonight's meeting, if you're watching on YouTube, you can join the Zoom meeting on the borough website. And if we see a strange face pop in there, we will reach out to you with public comment. Or you can email us at publiccomment@denaliborough.com, and we will do our best to incorporate any feedback in the meeting here. But if there isn't any testimony, we'll close the public hearing. And we will call the regular meeting to order. And to do that, I would ask Mr. Alexander to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Wow. Flag is over here, or over here, or over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander.
You're welcome.
And I would ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Dominic Finale,
Here.
thank you. Walt Warner,
Here.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Here.
David Alexander,
Here.
Richard Hammond,
Here.
Krista Zafone,
Here,
Jared Zimmerman,
Here.
we have a forum.
And that brings us to public comments. If any member of the public wants to provide any comments on anything pertinent to the assembly? No, it's not.
or anything at all.
Anything at all? Yeah. please.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me join today. I'm Jillian Simpson. I'm the president of the Alaska Travel Industry Association. It's my daughter Adigan. She is also being raised in tourism, spends a lot of time up here actually. Doing a little work, making beds occasionally, right? I am here tonight just because the ATIA board and marketing committee actually met here in Denali and Healy for the past couple of days. So ATIA, for those of you who don't know, is the statewide tourism trade association. We represent over 600 businesses across the state, and our primary goal is to make sure that we have a healthy tourism industry. And so we do that through, you know, traditional trade association activities like advocacy, education, membership benefits. And we are the official marketing organization for the state of Alaska. So we also promote the state as a visitor destination to drive demand to get people to come up here. So the meetings that we've had for the past few days, yesterday we met at the Grand and talked about our strategy for FY26 for tourism marketing. I know you guys were tracking our funding and that we started the legislative session with nothing in the statewide budget this year, and the legislature did close out flat funding us with $5 million. So we are putting together a plan to attract visitors with that, and primarily focusing on the independent traveler, which is something that we have shifted our focus to a little bit in the past couple of years. That seems to be the part of the market that has been softening. We're super fortunate to have fantastic cruise partners, and they do a fantastic job of marketing and bringing visitors to the state. So we're anticipating a strong cruise season this year. It'll be about the same level that it was last year, with about 500,000 people crossing the Gulf, with a total of 1.8 million cruise visitors this year. So it's really fantastic for us. They represent 65% of all the visitors to the state of Alaska. On the independent side, though, has definitely been weakening a little bit, and we're definitely seeing signs and hearing from different members that this season feels like it's going to be softer than we had hoped. So been tracking that carefully. It's all anecdotal right now. Certainly trends that we're hearing about from other destinations in Rule 48 have been reporting that as well. So really important that we get that marketing money into the marketplace and to drive visitation. And then the board met today here in Healy at Premier Alaska Tourist Place out at Otto Lake. And so we were also just talking about the state of the industry and what we can do. And it was very important for us to be here because Denali is such a critical part of the entire visitor experience. I mean, anybody that is coming over to this part, the number one reason is Denali. So we're really pleased to see all of the real big investments that have been being made by our cruise partners, but as well as all of the small businesses that are operating here. And that's really who we are representing primarily. Over 60% of our membership is a small business. So I just want to take this opportunity to say hello. Since we were here, we invited the mayor to come speak with us this morning. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but he said, but guess what? There is a meeting tonight. So I appreciate this opportunity. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. And thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Adigan. Thanks for coming.
And there's pizza.
And there's pizza.
Cookies and fries too.
Yeah. And salad.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? We did have a written public comment.
No others, so.
So I don't know, everybody, I guess we got emailed the letter from Mr. Craig in the Pangini subdivision. about the well in Ely. I did. Is there an update on? There was a project to provide a community well in Healy?
Yep.
From the chamber, right, or the foundation?
was a chamber. Chamber?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it was a bit.
They were gonna plop one in the parking lot over here.
Yep.
Yep.
Because what is the status of that? Do we have any involvement in
We've
that?
applied for at least 2, possibly 3 different grant opportunities, and we're not successful for any of those.
Okay.
I know that Vanessa, when she was with the chamber, was doing some research and trying to develop a better plan and hopefully be more successful with another grant application when a new opportunity comes up. But of course, her transition into a different career path, but I don't know what the status is, obviously.
Okay.
Reading this letter, I mean, I can empathize with how frustrating this would be, so I'm curious how, like, the area of McKinley Village with their water system are, for lack of a better word, securing their water source. Hang on. Cause I know that they have they have the sign up, you know, they're monitoring who's taking how much, they've got the controlled lock nozzle kind of thing, so being less familiar with the Pangini well house, is there room for improvements on that scale in the meantime? Looking at, I think you.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
my question too.
Yeah, it's where I get my water. I mean, I think there is a concern, just what's the size, the power, what's the capacity of the well,
Mhm.
and I think what would be bad for those of us, the residents, of that community would be to have so much water getting pulled out of there that it's no longer functional for,
Right, but the,
I mean,
for anybody.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the risk. And then there's
Oh. I thought it was my turn.
it's not your turn yet.
Alright.
But, cause the well house itself is owned, or is operated and owned by the homeowners association, right? So there is, for lack of a better word, a right to prevent the non-homeowners from using it.
Mhm. But the homeowner association does receive grant funding from the borough
Mm,
for road maintenance and operations expenses.
right,
And part of that grant is that the services are open to everybody in the borough. So
Is it?
the,
Because, because, at McKinley Village, there's a code and only people that live there get the code. And so it's not access for everybody, it's access for the people within the service area of the McKinley Village.
I'll have to argue that the.
Yeah, but
money's-
that's not necessarily the case, given I live in Cantwell. I've contacted leadership with the community board about getting access. As long as you get a hold of them, they will provide access. They just want to monitor who's going in and out and making sure that the winterization issues aren't compromised. So they don't get freeze up. So it is tightly monitored, but being a resident of Cantwell, I've not been denied use of that particular service when I've needed it. So I don't know that it's strictly for those residents of that particular, Village View subdivision area.
and there is a broader community need for
Oh, yeah.
access to.
Yeah.
Non-potable water.
Well, but in the short term, just a lock on the thing would do the trick, right?
Well, I mean, if you read it, a lot of it is people who do live there, but they're using it for Airbnbs and stuff, so it's a lot. They're in their service area, but they're using it, so for me, this is actually. They're just highlighting an issue, like Richard said, or Jared said, that we have.
Right.
There are a lot of people, there's a huge need for non-potable water in the borough. And I don't know, we've obviously talked about it before, Vanessa was working on the project. I would like to talk to her replacement or her, just see if we ever got a number of how much money we need for that. You know, I am a huge fan of, I don't like spending money on like things that aren't necessary, but to me, this is a service that I think the borough, it benefits so much of the borough. I don't know, I think we should figure out how much it costs. And I mean, if we're gonna be spending money on, you know, trails and sidewalks and separated pathways and parks and, you know, toilets and things like that, like, this is kind of up there. I mean, it's not like emergency services up there or school up there, but all these other things that we are funding. I don't know, for me, I'd
Right.
support a project to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, to me, the letter kind of highlights, it's like,
There's a huge need.
it's beyond, yeah, and it's beyond the capacity of what the intent of that facility was for.
Right.
It's like, I do see, it's like, we could make that facility bigger and better and, you know, high flow. Or does it make more sense if that meets the needs of everybody in that neighborhood and it's the other folks that have a higher demand for it? And especially if it was gonna be for commercial use or whatever it is, you know, if there was a central public location, like I know in Wasilla, there's one right
Well, they got-
right by one of the parks there,
Oh,
water
water-
wagon style.
Yeah.
Water wagon and Fairbanks kind of does the same thing, so,
'Cause I mean, we
but
haul
we just don't have that.
out of there for a while and, you know, just cut $100 check every year or whatever, but.
Mhm.
I was meeting people from down, you know, people that live down Sun Transit and stuff, because, you know, the power plant said you guys can't get water here anymore. And so all those people, they're going up there now. You know, there are people from all over that go there because they can get water there and everybody needs water.
Yeah.
So there is a huge need. I don't know, I think we should look into, you know, advise them to stick, you know, figure something out for themselves for now, and I think we should start moving forward to push whatever plan we had a little farther along.
Yeah, I think I would just agree, like, start with monitoring, right, so we know who's taking what water. And as far as like a municipal obligation entity or business practice, an centralized service like water does feel a little bit more in our purview, more than like a medical clinic or anything like that. So I think I would definitely be on board with exploring where we left off with what Vanessa and the chamber was working on or toward, and seeing if we can't piggyback off of where that is rather than start from scratch. Maybe the location changes or what have you, but I know the water table in this area in particular is pretty shallow, so it wouldn't be like a super huge well or super exorbitant cost, right? Even just to get another Pangini style station that relieves the homeowners associations.
Well, or. I mean, the other homeowners associations, I mean. The grant program would cover them for building themselves a well. You know, not the road parts, but you know, the other. Like that could be. A way for, you know, another group of homes to get themselves a community, you know, a community well.
It would take
I'm assuming-
it would take a partner organization that wanted to,
Yeah,
if it was just a Denali Borough grant and no other grant funding
right,
being looked for, it would take that to.
Right.
It would
Just-
take a
just
partner
like-
organization to come and ask us for money and manage the project.
yeah, just like I'm
And
assuming that
manage
that's what
the
you
well and
guys
the usage and all the
at
things.
Penguini did when they put in the well. I mean, not that I'm saying it was a grant thing, but that, you know, that was your organization that put in that well, right? I'm assuming,
Mhm. Yeah,
the
I think it was
homeowners
a state,
association.
I believe it was a state fire associated grant that maybe they should pull that in, but not 100% sure on
Right.
that, so.
But I mean, that's generally been the way that the borough has. You know, help people help themselves. You know, that's kind of the way we do things, right? We use the grants to help them help themselves. Just like the potential loan is to help them help
Yeah,
themselves.
I think the idea though here is or at least what I've gathered from the discussion is the need for maybe a borough well, not a. This subdivision gets a well, though, like.
One that pays for itself, swipe your credit card,
Something
pump your
that-
gallons.
If the chamber has land for it and they are still interested in being involved in it and having a water wagon style facility there, that'd be good. They could recoup their expenses of being the operating entity for it
Mhm.
by recouping it, you know, with costs like other folks do. That sounds good to me, but you do need the land, the rights to the water, and then the ability to actually manage it, which is which is a work, it is a burden, it is a workload.
There would be a way to incorporate that with the lines called rec center. Since that would be a shared lease land,
Mhm.
parking lot size, scalable project. In the coming years,
Yeah.
doesn't solve the problem here right now, but
Is there gonna be a washateria at the rec center?
I don't know, I feel like it would be $1 million idea to make one of those wash your own stations around here. Big enough for buses, small enough for a dog, like. Put a little pump on there.
how small?
I mean, like, so like the trucks could come through, spray down, you could go through with your ATV or your car or horse. I mean, we got all kinds of people that like to wash stuff. And then you just put a gas pump on the end of the building with a credit card swiper, fill it up and take you go. I would do it. If I had all the money to start all the businesses in my head, we wouldn't be the tiny little town. We would have all kinds of stuff, but. Cause I was in Anchorage one winter or one hockey tournament and the Mr. Clean car wash or whatever, I parked in the parking lot. And from the minute that place opened until the minute that place closed, it was a line of cars. I know we don't have the people, but we do have the ATVs and the dogs and the
Right.
horses and the. Just saying, school bus. I definitely see the need, I guess, to wrap it back into the.
Z's Washateria.
Well, I would encourage staff to follow up on the past grant stuff and just make a report back on where we're at. And if it seems like there's a role for the borough to move things forward, I'd like to hear about what we can do.
I think we actually looked into it in the past during COVID, when we had some COVID funds, and Clay was a big proponent as well on the community well. I mean, I think we actually looked at certain locations. And I think maybe that's when Vanessa took it over or whatnot, but I know that it's a reoccurring theme.
Yeah.
And I know we've got land to do it, so it's just a matter of putting in the work and making it happen.
Yep.
Any other public comments? Hearing none. Oh, man. 7 o'clock coming soon.
Yeah.
Approval of tonight's agenda?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh,
So, well, I just, at the beginning, was there something you wanted to change on the agenda? Was there discussion modifying it? No.
Like to make the motion to approve the agenda?
Seconded.
Moved by Mr. Alexander and seconded. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Changes? Hearing none. All that unanimous. No communication or appearances tonight. We have the May 14th assembly meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the May 14th assembly minutes?
Moved by Mr. Alexander to approve the minutes and seconded. Any discussion or amendments to the minutes as presented?
Negative.
Any opposition to approving?
Nope.
Hearing none. All that unanimous brings us to reports. Partner reports.
Partners didn't go.
School district report. Superintendent Volta, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for the pizza.
Happy summer.
Absolutely.
You know, whether you have a meeting or not, just tell me there's pizza. Yeah, my written report will go through and just highlight a few things. Want to just offer congratulations to all of our graduates. This is a good year for us. We had 3 graduation ceremonies at each of our 3 schools in the borough. Graduated, had totally 18 students participate in the ceremonies. Again, 4 schools, Anderson, Tri Valley, Cantwell, and then we also had Houston out of Peak students walking in the ceremonies as well. one more formal ceremony to go, and that's this Friday down in Anchorage at the Peak office. They do a little ceremony down there, people that want something a bit more than just dinner. Other thing to kind of share and congratulate, really want to highlight the celebrations of learning that Cantwell held on May 21st. They presented on a unit that Wendy Thorne put together called Snare the Hare. And it opened with a skit on trapping and some of the traditional ethics of trapping, of like taking what you need, tied into Athabascan language for terminology of the different animals involved. And then the students researched and wrote about snowshoe hares, studied how to snare them, how to trap them, caught one, skinned it, took it out, looked at the insides of it. What's this? What's that? Took all the bones, cleaned all the bones up, and then actually brain tanned the hide.
Cool.
This was grades K through 8.
That's awesome.
It was really interesting. It was this really involved, really great project, and very like kind of hands-on as much as you're gonna let them be hands-on with like
How do I sign up? That's how
like
I
a snare and like cleaning knives and stuff. But it was great to see how, like, even with that kind of like project-based approach, a kindergartner could participate and learn and grow, and the 8th grader could participate and learn and grow on something that they were all just really, really quite excited to be a part of. Also want to thank, coming out of Cantwell, Wendy Thorne again, and Marie Gore. They continue to do the work putting on the culture camp this year. Be the first time for them putting that together. If I have the dates right, that is June 18th to 20th. They've been getting a lot of just outreach from the community, people offering just kind of come in and do different sessions on things. And it was interesting talking to them because it wasn't just, traditional Athabascan culture, is also kind of like modern rural culture. So I forget the name of the gentleman that came in and was like, yeah, I'll come in and teach, fly time. It's the subsistence, these activities, kind of a then and now type of approach. And just really feel excited to see the community so engaged in that, as well as help grow or reestablish some roots in the traditional community that's been lost over the years. I want to offer congratulations to a couple of athletes that placed in the state track tournament. Taylor Eddington placed second in the 100 meters and the 400 meter, and then was first in state in the 200 meter and the 300 meter hurdles. So congratulations to her. We'll say that they only let you race in 4 things. So that's why she wasn't get that 5th one. But also congratulations to Cordell Rana. He placed second in the 200 meters. Congratulations to both of them. On some operational business, just something to note on our current year budget, or FY25. The department contacted us and in just kind of like a wrapping kind of year-end information up, they said, hey, remember that 10% carryover limit that we've been kind of talking about, and we've been planning on, we need to be under that at the end of this year. They said, no. That, since that doesn't come into effect till like the waiving of that was through this year, it's not applied on this year's audit. So even though the audit's going to be looked at post the date in the statute, they confirmed, hey, this is not applied to that. So we're probably going to hold on to those funds that we have that are above the 10% limit. That's going to allow us to earn the interest on that, rather than doing prepaid for services that we know we'll be purchasing. To actually help with our revenue picture a little bit. We also had Jeremy reach out to Deed and get a double confirmation of this. And then I actually had a meeting I had with other superintendents. One of my other colleagues got a triple confirmation. They actually reached out 3 times because they're like, no, if we're gonna do this, we need a lot of documentation in case they come back and say, oh, whoops. A couple things on next year's budget. You probably heard in the media, HB 57, which included an increase to the base student allocation. The governor vetoed, but a vote to override the veto was successful on a vote of 46-14. So that is now in law and in statute. In terms of impacts to our budget, that kind of gives us pretty good assurance that those funds would be there. But we've already budgeted for an increase of $680. So that $700 increase to the BSA doesn't really change our budget picture very much at all. Like there are a couple other small revenue pictures, and like at most we'd see like maybe a $60,000 shift in our revenue from what we budgeted. Then the other risk with this is that Governor's been, he hasn't super explicitly stated it, but he's implicitly said it quite a bit, that he's most likely to veto the appropriation in the operating budget. And when he does that, similar to what Governor Walker did with the PFD several years ago, they have a line item, governor has line item veto authority and can, in the budget, strike through any amount and write anything less than that amount all the way down to zero. And if he lowers the aggregate amount for school funding, it would just be proportionally distributed as if a smaller amount had been allocated. So we're kind of anticipating that there'll be a veto of that funding, but we don't know like to what level it would be. We hope it would not be down to zero. The vote to override a appropriation veto is a higher vote threshold. You would need 45 votes of the joint legislature. And so that 46-14 vote could do it, but it's really close. And you can see a lot of politics going in that could shift some of those votes. The other thing that we've heard is that the vote to override would not happen until January, until the legislature convenes in regular session. It's very difficult for the legislator to come together in the summer because of housing problems in Juneau and the commitments that a lot of the legislators have for other things. Like I heard one of them is on active duty service. It's not going to get released for like that one day of session to go in and vote. And that is just kind of an example of why it's probably going to have to wait to January if it does happen. Again, for our budget with the reserves that we have, we'll be fine to kind of wait through all of that. That increase that we're seeing in HB 57 starts to kind of telegraph out that FY 27 could be much more of a challenge. The last several years, as we've budgeted and kind of said we'll get the same amount as last year, the states all kind of come in and given a little bit more than that and a little bit more than that. And this year they're kind of going real flat. And so when we look at and start thinking about rolling up costs 1 year, 2 years down the road, start going, that's going to be time. It's going to be time. And we don't think that any other further changes would happen in the next legislative session. There's not going to be an election between now and then, so the makeup of the bodies is going to stay the same. We don't think there'd be an appetite to increase the VSA again next year. On a couple of facility things, just want to kind of make people aware on two big things. At each of our 3 campuses this summer, we're doing the installation of our preschool playground equipment. It's going to start later in June, I think on the 20th or the 21st. The contractors will take about a week at each site. And then our crew comes in and kind of finishes up, like kind of putting it down some safety pads and then pea gravel. And they'll be working at each of those sites for about a week as well. But after that, then we'd have preschool sized or equipment for preschool sized kids at each of the campuses. Other things, just update on the project for the septic and leach field replacement at Tri-Valley. We have completed and signed a contract with the engineering firm Respect for the engineering work on that. As part of that work, they do have to disturb the softball field a little bit. They need to do some test holes to figure out the composition of the soils, do some tests and stuff. So between June 26th and June 30th, we're going to be digging some pretty big holes in a few different spots. And the plan is that the hole gets dug down. You can go down 13 feet, use a backhoe, and hope to fill it in that same day. So it'll be the disruption in terms of the access to the softball field on those days. Potentially overnight, there might be a hole that we'd be fencing off. The other thing is even when it's filled up, we're not putting the grass back in on top. So the softball field again will have kind of like a think of it as an extra base out there of just gravel to watch. So be aware that earlier I'd said, hey, there'd be no disruption in the softball field this year because we weren't doing the actual work. There will be on those days, and then there will be those gravel areas based on all this. Let's see. There's just 1 or 2 more things to share with you and highlight. Yeah, just a couple updates on personnel. I wanted to let you know we have selected someone for the secretary's teaching assistant position in Anderson that'll start in August of next year. That's Bethany Jones, a member of the kind of Anderson community around there. Also has some younger kids that might be in the school next year. kind of update on certified staff. We did get an extension to the H-1B visa for one of our teachers, Maria Cordova. Still waiting for the extension on our other teacher, Rachel Nicole Saginson. And we continue to work through, almost done with the recruitment campaign to see if we were able to hire a US citizen for those positions. It's looking like we are not able to do that, which then empowers us to move forward with our application to sponsor their permanent residence. So we got a couple of days to go and we'll be able to start moving that through. And again, that just means we get to the next step of a multi-year process. We're getting a little bit farther down the line. The other thing that I mentioned, and something for next year, we have approved a student intern to work at Tri-Valley School and maybe do some work, Anderson and Cantwell. Person out in Enana, Kim Ullery, is doing coursework in getting her degree in social work and needs to do some practicum hours. And so we talked with her, talked with the program, and then said, yes, it's okay, and invited her to come in and do that. So again, you hear about, there's a social worker there, there's this other new person there. We're helping that person get that degree. And with that, I'd entertain any questions.
I was reading today that the State Department of Education was going to pass a rule that might affect the amount of money that the borough can contribute to the schools. Do you know if that got voted on and passed, and if that would affect us?
Great questions. Initially, they were looking to do this as an emergency regulation, and it would be a regulation codifying and restricting what is counted as a local contribution. We think about that 23% cap that we talk about. They would be saying, we think all of these things should be counted as that. And concerns with that language are that they'd be codifying things like giving money from the borough for the school district to support a community service, like a daycare service, or like a standalone, kind of not affiliated with our K-12 program, separate preschool, after school programs. Is there even support for transportation funding? These things kind of outside that core K-12 mission, and the State Department of Education was saying, we want to count all of those things as a local contribution. And for some districts, that would then kind of pull in some things that they're receiving from their boroughs that right now they're excluding from that 3% contribution. It would not impact us because we've always kept just that straight 23%. And if we use it, like a lot of years, we are subsidizing transportation out of our operating, but there's not a separate allocation from the borough to pay for that. So it wouldn't have an impact on us at the moment. Could impact other school districts. At the meeting today, the State Board of Education decided not to adopt it as an emergency regulation and instead put it out for a 30-day public comment period, which would allow them to vote on this regulation in a July meeting.
And so were the other districts using that as sort of a way to game the system a little bit and contribute more than the local contribution?
I don't know if I'd say game the system, but
Right.
like use the system.
Yeah.
Use the system to, and think for a community to say, oh, you want after-school programs? That's great. State doesn't give us money for after-school programs, but I can manage those for you.
Right.
So there were communities, Juneau in particular,
Mhm.
has kind of been spearheading this conversation with the department. They received some funds outside of that 23% cap. I know Skagway does as well. Few other ones,
Okay.
not us.
Not us.
And is the push to deal with that, is that does it seem to come from the state? Is the state work, because the state runs the risk of if we don't follow the 23% rule, we lose federal funding. Is it?
The state claims that it's related to the discrepancy test and their desire to pass that, which allows them to take federal impact aid that would go to local school districts and take that back into the state coffers and say that's the required local contribution. Information gathered from the Juneau School District and the Superintendent's Association from the federal government says, yeah, we didn't ask the state to do this. The calculations for that the state uses for that test are really are impacted by those funds. So we find it, yeah, some interesting politics.
Thank you. I had a question about softball field and septic work. There was, some kind of greater facility planning, kind of recreation facility planning around the school a while ago, kind of parking lot, athletic facilities, stuff like that, kind of scoping level. What is the status of that, and is the septic work potentially gonna?
This would not impact any of that thinking, and that was kind of thinking that your previous mayor was really spearheading and looking at it as this would be good improvements to community recreation facilities.
Outside of the 23% cap.
Right. And that's a great example of something that could be pulled into that.
Yeah.
But again, as it was really a more of a borough initiative, it's not something that we've continued to look at. But this work doesn't impact that side. It was really looking more at that kind of access road out to the soccer field, improving that, reorienting soccer field, pushing it out farther, possibly putting additional parking, kind of further out past the elementary. So, yeah.
And was there a design team that was engaged in that, or was that mostly kind of staff level?
I can't remember if there was a design team engaged with that. I think a student engineer, student architect did do some work on some traffic pattern work at the school.
Okay.
And that I think is how, we probably have copies of it in the school district. I think that you should have copies of it in the borough office as well.
We do.
Thank you. Mayor's report, we have, on the table, sent to us.
Jared.
Okay, good evening. Thanks, everybody.
And Dominic, it's, I believe I put it on the online packet and I will email it to you as well.
Yeah, I think I have it, so if you wanna. I'll just check real quick, additional meetings, June. Yeah,
And you
no, I
guys-
don't have it. Yeah, if you could email that, that'd be great.
Brings us to assembly comments, and start with Mr. Canali online.
Yeah, great discussion, through the work session, appreciated that. Thanks to all the members of the public who came out in support of, that particular ordinance. Look forward to helping to move that forward as we proceed here. Also just want to share the superintendent's comments regarding congrats to all the recent high school graduates. Also, I want to extend congratulations to Tvetni Carlson, who, although he graduated from Cantwell School some years ago, he just completed his PhD in civil engineering from Berkeley, with a specialty in alternative energy. So hopefully we bring some of that brain power back to the borough to help us design our community for the future. We could certainly use that kind of talent, but it just really speaks to the, I guess the Tri-Valley school system, or the Denali school district, the quality of education that we have, that we're turning out, though our numbers are few, but the academics and the achievements are great. So I think hats off to the superintendent and the school system for producing that kind of talent. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I guess finally, I just wanted to communicate, I guess, what would be considered an ex parte communication from Jim Adams, who's the Alaska Regional Director for National Parks Conservation Association, NPCA. Anyway, he emailed myself wanting to know if the assembly would be interested in supporting a resolution in support of the National Park Service and staffing and all the various issues that the Park Service is facing, and just seeing the critical nature of Denali, of the National Park Service here at Denali to the borough. I think it's worth, I know we did discuss it as an idea, I think back in March, but I don't believe we've actually crafted a resolution to date. So I guess I'll throw my hat in the ring as far as assisting staff or whomever would be interested in crafting a potential resolution for the assembly to consider here in the near future, perhaps at July meeting. So I just wanted to share that since a member of the community did reach out to communicate an interest. So I just thought I would disclose that. That's all I have right now.
Yes, thank you for everybody to come. That came, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would be in support of passing that resolution, and I think that he has a draft resolution that he could give you as a template.
Yes.
Also to change the topic a little bit, I was thinking, I put in my comments on the Stampede development plan, for I think that just closed, or it's, yeah, it just closed. And so looks like a really nice piece of property. Seems to be a very, well, that's neither here nor there. But what I was looking at I was evaluating the three potential developments and looking at what some of the costs might be associated with developing these things. And specifically, I was looking at, because that's one of the things that's on there is like the length of the roads that we would be funding, as part of the development. That one seems, it seems like Lignite would be the shortest. This one would be the next, not by that much. The Yannert one, assuming that we would have to upgrade the roads according to our new guidelines, because we're adding that much, additional houses up there, would be long. And I know what our current, and I'm just throwing out ideas. I know that our current sort of track is to simultaneously push them all along, hoping that we can get one of them to the goal line first. I know we have the problems with the owning the land for Lignite. Questions about Yannert, and I don't know where we stand, but I was wondering if it makes sense to more focus ourselves on the one that we think would be able to do in a reasonable amount of time, first, and also be financially more feasible. I don't know whether trying to do them all at once is, I think at some point we got to make a decision and say, all right, this is the one that we really have to push through. So I was just thinking about that, and something for everybody to think about. That's it.
Nothing for me. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for a great work session. Fun and exciting stuff to work on. And I guess to kind of respond to that, I do feel like we kind of want to get to a conceptual phase on two, and by default with all three of the projects, but with the idea to have know as much as we can know to make a good decision and where to invest our energy for those next steps. So I feel like we're getting close to that point.
Yeah, that property looks nice up there.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for joining us for the work session. It is an exciting opportunity to be able to craft a program like the one we're talking about with the healthcare assistants. Similarly to Jared's response, Mr. Alexander, I was under more of the impression that we wanted to do the conceptual part and then pull the trigger on one. And I had my own opinions about doing it that way when we agreed to do it that way. And I do feel like like Mr. Zimmerman just stated, we're almost there. We have these 3 ideas and now we're gonna like, I don't know if we're throwing a dartboard at it or what we're doing, but I think the point that you brought up about the length of the road and the cost of initial development is an important one for us to consider when we're making that decision. Because that will fall onto our responsibility, right, to build the road and get it to the point where somebody could buy the land and then drive there, right? So definitely appreciate the perspective. I am looking forward to seeing that discussion / decision being made and moving forward with this, because this is another one of those things we hear about a lot. The rest of my comments will come up during discussion coming down here, but I did just want to take a second to share and express our condolences for the Graham family. Tony Graham, long-term firefighter, first responder, beloved member of our community and one of the biggest families in our community, unexpectedly passed away. So I just wanted to kind of express those condolences and honor his service and just make sure that we're aware collectively that has occurred.
Thanks, Dave, for your perspective on that. It's always seeing the bigger picture, which I appreciate that. And to the public out here, I'm so glad you showed up for the work session and I don't have to go, well, there's a physical therapist that's out this way, or there's one that works at the base. And we've got some clinic representation here also. So happy that you're here to represent that and kind of paint a better picture for us. So thanks for showing up. I always appreciate the public. Yeah.
Thanks for the pizza.
There's more.
No ordinances up for introduction tonight, but we do have 6 ordinances for consideration and or approval tonight. First up is the FY 26 budget.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY 26 budget.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Apone and seconded. We strongly considered passing this at last month's meeting. Is there any suggested changes from staff?
We have no suggested change.
Would you recommend approval tonight?
There we go.
Any discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, I would ask for a roll call vote on approval.
Richard Hammond,
Yep.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
Yes.
David Alexander,
Yes.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Yay. Ordinance is adopted. We've got a budget.
We got a budget.
And next up is ordinance 25-04, fiscal year 2026 capital improvement program.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 25-04.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Zapone to approve and seconded. Any discussion on ordinance 25-04? Hearing none, I would ask for a roll call vote on approval.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Yes.
Richard Hammond,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
David Alexander,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman,
Yes,
it's unanimous.
that ordinance is adopted. Brings us to ordinance 25-05 to establish a healthcare provider assistance program.
Like to make a motion to postpone 25-05 until next meeting.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Alexander to postpone. Sorry, and seconded.
That's why
Gonna miss it. Oh, any discussion on the motion to postpone?
Yeah, I don't know if I was just doing that because I feel like it would take a long time to hash through this, where it'd be much easier if I came and like maybe got with Amber and we made a few of the changes that we were talking about earlier. Do it and just bring that, but I don't know if everyone else feels the same way.
We'll be sure to have Allison in, since the details are really gonna fall in the
Yeah.
finance room.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's, we talked about the application process, picking through that stuff, which we normally do. So, yeah, if you guys can stitch it up and, I mean, I'm all for it, but
Right, yeah, yeah.
make it happen.
If I could. Do you wanna go?
Oh, you
first?
can go first.
Okay. So I wrote some notes, so I just kind of wanted to, recap what I wrote down to make sure that you guys agree that I can kind of captured what was said. So some of the parameters that I heard, we discussed during the work session was that, that it would only be available for, only available for a year-round practice.
Mhm.
The intent is for the money to be used, within the Denali Borough.
Mhm.
Assume this will be, assume that it would be the first choice for funding, not necessarily our last. Thanks,
Although I don't know if that needs to be, but that's something we can discuss in there.
okay, okay. Leave eligibility activities open-ended with the opportunity to describe those activities through the application. Need to be a licensed professional. Need to include a business plan and an operation plan or operation plan. Identify business ownership and individuals. And then financials, I heard a possibly and a maybe. True, not true.
I would think that, we would include that within the application part.
Sorry, I
Right.
didn't wanna cut you off. In my opinion, the financial viability or credibility aspect of that would be more for like a satellite. Or an existing practice company that wants to come in. Cause you can't really put the straps of proving financial viability out the gate med student. Who's. So I think that, in my opinion, that was one of the comments I was gonna make, is like. Even though this is available for both types of entity, we don't wanna write it in such a way that it constrains one use or the other. Because it potentially, you're getting a 30-something-year-old entrepreneur. Similar to the way that Patty came through, who's just trying to get started. They're not gonna have a lot of that financial credibility, mumbo jumbo-y stuff. As opposed to Horizon Medical would be able to prove this is a service, this is what we do, this is what we do. The out the gate option isn't really gonna know that stuff. I mean, obviously, they're gonna do some market research and have all those things. So when you are crafting that portion of it, looking at both of you, just maybe try to tread lightly, so we're not handcuffing it one way or the other. Cause we do want this to be a mouth-watering opportunity for some practitioners in our area, so.
Do you think that it would be best addressed in the application process?
If they give us a narrative like the ones in the past for the grants of. Here's who I am, here's what I'm capable of doing, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I need, here's what it's for.
And here's my 5-year vision.
Yeah, I think that's more pertinent to draw those type of folks in here, versus the more established spaces. I would expect them to have that, but I think that's a whole different, topic there, but.
Well, what I was
If these
thinking
folks
is for the ordinance, maybe in the part where it says that, something about the application process would be, done by whatever, that we would say like, the application must include, a business plan of, ties to the borough and, something like along those lines, just add like a couple of things, not just a little bit of guidance.
I can understand the guidance part of it, so they can maybe have a good understanding of what we might be looking at.
Right.
I wouldn't make it a. Where, no, we want you, but now it's.
Right.
You
Just say like, it needs to include these things along with whatever else they want to put in there.
Yeah, and sell it to us.
Yeah.
So an application is.
I mean, I do think, standard credit checks, like there's a baseline level of due diligence. that
Right.
If we're taking on the responsibility of a lender,
Right.
that we have to do.
Right.
I don't know. where, like you said.
Where the-
How restrictive we're gonna be, obviously, I think the intent is to be.
Yeah.
A little bit liberal with our lending policies here
We
to
don't use that
encourage
word.
them to do something what we want, yeah. Not liberal, the other one. But, and then the other part was, like, what do we do if they don't pay us back?
Yeah.
Like, that's a standard loan stuff, but we should figure, like, there's just kind of like that. If we're taking on the role of a lender, what do we actually, like, what do we need in here to to be able to do what we want it to do? And that's a whole realm I'm not familiar with, but
Yeah.
just get boilerplate stuff in there or whatever we need to do to make it.
And that
actually
would,
work.
that would be in the application that, you know, by signing this application, you understand that, you know, you are obligated to repay the loan and blah, 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 whatever the lawyer tells us, that's gotta be in there, right?
I would say so. That was my idea. Whatever lawyer says, put in there, and just make sure that it's not gonna. Yeah. Do what we don't want it to do.
Right.
Yeah.
The last comment about this I have for tonight is just, if we are really entertaining I'm gonna look at Allison, cause she's the numbers. If we really are gonna entertain partnering or contracting First National, I would like to see us explore them undertaking kind of that background check role and see if that combination of service could be part of our scope there. You might already know the answer, which is fine, but
Yeah, I do want to say, I don't think First National would be contracted to provide that sort of analysis or credit check service.
okay,
But they would be able to, once we got to the point that we had a loan agreement with, an entity that they could handle the billing and the payment receiving, so more of the administrative of, handling the loan after it's signed, similar to how we've, handled when we sell land through an escrow. That would help the administrative burden of, like handling the loan. But it wouldn't, I don't foresee them being a partner in
the screening.
credit worthiness or running any of those services for an entity. I think we'd have to seek, you know, a different provider, maybe, like a CPA firm or something like that.
Thank you.
Do you know what and they would do that was for the fee, there would be some sort of fee for administrating the,
There would be, yeah, so the fee, could be passed on to,
The R&D.
And then. This would establish a fund. It does not put any money into the fund.
We would need an allocation on
We
it.
just passed our budget.
Mhm.
It would not be an allocation ordinance, but would it be a fund transfer? That we would need, like a transfer of money from the general fund to go with this? So is that? We could either, in a version B. Maybe appropriate to. Establish that with this. To keep it on track timeline wise. Or a separate, you know, transfer ordinance or whatever we need to do to make that, but. We should start considering
We are. gonna
actually
need
putting some money in the fund
ordinance.
if we have people that are interested in getting the money out.
I think in the ordinance as it sits, it does state that we would create a fund. So it would.
It doesn't define how much money is gonna go in it,
Correct.
or the
We would
financial
need to do
mechanism,
that.
or actually getting the money in it.
we need to do that by ordinance as well? Yeah,
Is it close enough to this that we could just amend this one to include an amount of money to go into the fund? Because then we would establish the fund.
Technically, yes, sometimes it's cleaner to have it as a separate, it's a standalone its own, but it could kind of ride along with this one. I know for the audit, it's easier if like you can go, here's a transfer and here's that ordinance and sometimes that's easier, so I'll just throw that out there.
Good
And then
thinking.
another thing to keep in mind, one of the biggest ways that we are different than a regular lending, lender, I should say, is we're a public body, and so these applications and things that we ask to be included in these applications will be public information. They are going to be online, and so that's just something to keep in mind. when we say what we're asking these people to, for this type of information, it will be public information. So there could be some hesitancy for some things I would foresee.
Yeah. Are there some provisions that we could, you know, if we were gonna review things as a body, could review them in a executive session?
Executive session is very narrow, but we could certainly,
You're saying like, give it credit worthiness is like where that's
trying to
gonna
figure
come
out how
out.
you identify that clearly, that these items are confidential and would be reviewed in an executive session. Yeah, we would need to think through that.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna review an existing business operation, you know, trade secret or kind of whatever.
Right.
Isn't appropriate to make public, and then individual credit worthiness or whatever.
Absolutely, we'll need to identify that as well. If we decide to ask for something that
Mhm.
it would be that sensitive.
That's something that, legal could give us guidance on as well.
I would really appreciate that.
Hope so. Great.
The list. Good working with staff?
Yes.
Version B, okay,
Yep.
thank you. Any other discussion then on, this ordinance tonight? I guess the motion is to postpone, so we should postpone. Seconded. Right, yeah. Okay, anyone opposed to postponing?
No,
Hearing none, all that unanimous.
Just one more month, Patty. Tell your friend,
Sorry.
tell your associate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. This is lightning pace by Denali Bros standard, just so you know.
Yeah, that's pretty fast.
You can go back and review the record of some of these ordinances.
6 months
but-
before we even ever.
There,
Good work.
we're getting there. Yep. Ordinance 25-06 is an ordinance to establish the Community and Outdoor Recreation Committee.
I'd move to approve ordinance 25-06.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Zepone to approve the ordinance, adopt the ordinance. We did have, a suggested change, that was sent out to us. We'd asked staff to provide a little more,
Regarding the purpose.
regarding the purpose, kind of a purpose statement for the committee. And, they did provide a draft language for that, so I would entertain a motion to substitute that language. Yeah.
I'll second it.
You have to make it. He can't make.
Oh,
it.
you did?
I
Well,
can.
make a motion to, how do I do that?
Substitute.
Substitute the changes to the ordinance.
Section 2. Or the suggestion, okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Hammond to amend the ordinance with the suggested language and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you, staff, for putting that together. I thought that was good. And I would ask for a roll call vote then on approval of ordinance 25-06. Wait, did that pass? Did the motion to amend to pass?
I guess we didn't vote on it.
No, anyone opposed
we
to
haven't
amending?
voted on it.
Yeah, anyone opposed to amending?
Nope.
That's good.
Pizza
Feel
did.
better, that's all.
Good. All right, and now I would, roll call vote it is. But we are there now. Roll call.
Now we're there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Richard Hammond,
Yes.
David Alexander,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Yes.
Krista Zepone,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes,
It is unanimous.
ordinance is adopted. We have a Community and Outdoor Recreation Committee. Bringing us to ordinance 25-07, allocation from the Capital Improvement Fund for the Clear Fire Road Repair Project.
If they make the motion to approve ordinance 25-07.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Alexander to approve and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
We just, maybe even today, I think, posted that, invitation to bid for this project. I talked with Allison, Forest Tree, earlier today. And, we feel a good recommendation would be to carry this one more month. The chances are next month, there'll be a resolution for you to award that contract. And just if anything weird or different comes up through that process, that would give you the flexibility to amend this ordinance if that dollar amount looks like it might need to change. So that's just a recommendation from staff to carry it one more month and then approve both of those at the same time.
Yeah.
Since it's kind of a combined project.
Yeah, it would be okay to approve the ordinance and then in the same meeting at the allocate with that resolution.
Right.
Yeah, so
I'd like to make a motion to take back my motion to approve. And it said make a motion to postpone.
motion is to postpone by Mr. Alexander, and it has been seconded. Any discussion on postponing? Anyone opposed?
Nope.
That's unanimous. The ordinance is postponed. So we will have something on our agenda next week. Two ordinances on Saturday. And ordinance, that brings us to ordinance 25-08, allocation from the capital improvement fund for improvements at the Cantwell Transfer Station.
Like to make a motion to approve ordinance 25-08.
Second. Moved by Ms. Zapone to approve and seconded. Any discussion? Any staff recommendations on this one? There's no discussion. I would ask for a roll call vote for approval of ordinance 25-08.
Richard Hammond,
Yes.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Yes.
Dominic Finelli,
Yes.
David Alexander,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Ordinance is adopted. No resolutions, no other business, but we do have time for public comments.
Three things. First, thank you. Really appreciate your budget ordinance and fully funding the local request for the school district. You know, I say it often that kind of that reliable partnership with you really does a lot to transform the lives of our students. In a challenging year like this, where we saw a lot of consternation from other communities, we didn't have to experience and go through any of that here. And that benefits us because it keeps us focused on teaching our kids. And that's where we can put our energies and not conversations that are just pulling us apart. Other things, since we're celebrating other graduates, also want to mention Kayana Carlson, who received her Juris Doctorate degree from Hamline University in Minnesota, the same weekend that Tvetny was hooded, as it's called, when he got his PhD, and also just honoring, recognizing another long-term community member, Bud Carlson, that passed away recently. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other public comment? Close public comment, move to assembly comments. Start with Mr. Hammond.
Yep. I think I pretty much hit everything in the prior comments. Just thanks for everybody showing up, and thank you, Dan, for always having such good reports on the school district. I appreciate this. That's all I got, folks.
Yeah, thank you for attending for the work session and sticking through the meeting. That's my favorite part, when people stay to the end. I'm pretty excited about the opportunity. I definitely want to shout out to all of our graduates from the Denali Borough and those that are continuing their education still. More accolades to come, and hopefully eventually come back once they're done experiencing the rest of the world. I have just a couple of friendly announcements. The Lions Club Auto Lake Cleanup Day is this Sunday at 1 o'clock, I believe. Don't quote me, I was wrong last time I said it out loud. And then obviously with the 4th of July coming up, the Community Barbecue Parade Extravaganza. So just to keep your calendars aware, we'd love to have you. I will be at the car launch down there watching things go boom for the first time. I'm super excited. But the Lions Club will still be here serving you guys, so please express your support. The other thing I would like to say for the fire department is they are heavy in the fundraising mode right now. They're really trying to procure funds for a new fire truck. The one that we have is. It's getting up there in age and reliability, and so if you see signs or. Fundraising opportunities that they're trying to do, I think they did a pancake breakfast last weekend. So just keep your eyes and ears open, spread the word when you can, because they are our first defense in those situations. Other than that, it's always a pleasure to be here. Again, thank you for the food, especially on the summer days when it's easy to stay outside working until you have to be here, like me. And you guys have a good rest of your month. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for, feel like we got a lot of good work done tonight. Looking forward to the next meeting already. Yeah, congrats to the graduates. Congrats to the student athletes that ran really fast. At state, that's awesome. I know some of those first places were not just first place for like the small school division, but fastest of all the schools, which is pretty awesome. And, yeah, this has been, sometimes I complain that like spring and fall is so short here. But we've had like this springtime, it's just like gone on for months and I'm ready for summer. Can't wait for it to get here. Everybody's here, showing up, expecting to see it.
Yeah.
It'll get here, but enjoy these beautiful spring days.
Yeah, I think we did good work today. It's nice to have a budget. It's nice to have funded schools. I was happy to see the healthcare provider assistance program get moved forward. I am also impressed with how fast that thing's moving and, let's not let that stop us. There's other things we can do quickly, guys.
Whoa.
Crazy, fucking dizzy, seatbelts.
And that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think I've yacked enough.
Second.
Thanks.
Dominic. Mr.
Yeah,
Canale.
hey, I have nothing more to add, just wishing everybody a good evening and look forward to seeing everybody next month in Cantwell for our next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, next assembly meeting is in Cantwell, July 9th at the Cantwell School. We will be getting together for a tour of the UC Valley Coal Mine next Wednesday,
Correct.
June 11th,
At 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Back then.
at Black
At
Diamond.
Black Diamond, yeah.
Tour to follow. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
And unanimous.
Wait, I object.
Okay.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you.
You.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Down there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're starting to drive up in the next couple of days.